I am an introvert, so getting behind a camera and talking, that's something that I'd say like battled with for a very long time. Even my brother was telling me, I can see you're on Twitter trending. It's a very common mistake for most buyers. They call it encumbrances. I've said it and I'll say it and I'll say it again. Just have someone who has legal background. It's sad to say, but not all developers will be honest. You're entering in an industry where there's so much money and people are holding you accountable. I think I was so naive, so afraid.
Most people try to make the clients buy what they have.
Why are you buying this property? People in the property industry, what we do is we just sell. You need to have that connection with the buyer.
I've seen you create a lot of content, a lot of educational content, which is superb.
On my pages, I read with more information and the selling is at the back of it. I think nowadays, 90% of us in Nairobi or even in Kenya, whatever you studied in school is not what you end up doing. Apparently, not everybody has gotten that information. Go into any bank, ask about this affordable mortgage, you get at least 10.5M and below at 9.5%, and you see if you can qualify and get yourself a unit. This is information I think everybody is having. This I can't do away without. So you need to listen carefully for that. Have your own basic information.
Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are privileged to have Eunice with us. Eunice has been one of the leading agents in Nairobi, helping people mostly in buying of land, houses, and other different kinds of properties. And if you've been anywhere online, you've probably come across some of her educational videos, and I thought she would be a great resource for us today. So welcome. This is going to be a very enlightening conversation, so stick with us to the end. And welcome, Eunice, to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you
Hope
for having me.
you are doing fine.
Yes.
Now, Eunice, let's just get to know you, get to know your story and why you're in real estate. So just give us a quick background and how you ended up to be in real estate.
So I think nowadays, 90% of us in Nairobi or even in Kenya, whatever you studied in school is not what you end up doing. So in campus, I did sports science, but have immediately after campus, I found myself doing a lot of admin work, and I ended up in an admin work in a real estate company, which now helped me to transition into the real estate industry. I didn't know I'd love it as much, and also I was a bit skeptical. You know, growing up in Muranga, I've not interacted with people selling property. All I knew is people sell land, not property. So when I started getting interest, I was not so sure about it. How will you get customers? You're selling a property worth 15, 20M. Do people have such kind of money? And I think that comes from not being exposed, which sometimes exposure is good. So I was a bit skeptical, but the moment I got into it, and with a background in customer service, that means in the admin work, which is mostly customer service, that means seeing people happy that you're giving them what you promised is just a good feeling, I think, for myself. And that's how I found myself in real estate. So I've been doing it for around, I'd say now 6 years, mostly properties within the sides of Kiambu. That is where I've mostly focused in. Yes.
Great. It's good to hear, at least even for myself. I think I did accounting and marketing, and I find myself in the same industry too. But
Yes.
now, give us a little bit about your journey, how you've been finding it in real estate. Do you still like it? If you went back 6 years ago, knowing what you know now, would you still want to be in real estate, or would you have chosen something different?
I wouldn't have chosen something different. But 6 years ago, I think I was so naive, so afraid. As I said, like you're entering in an industry where there's so much money and people are holding you accountable. So there was that issue of feeling like I'm not confident as I am right now. And I was not as brave as to put even my ideas out there. So I would shy off. But knowing what I know now, at least I know the do's and the don'ts. I know what I can advise a client. Because 6 years back, if a client came to me, I didn't have much information to give you. I didn't have even much options to give you. But at least within, they say experience is the best teacher, and that is what I've gotten over time. And there's so much to learn in this industry. There's so much to even to learn from other realtors, to learn from other developers, to learn from contractors. There's so much information out here.
Thanks. And I'll come back to you on that one. At least you say there is so much to learn, and I'm
Yes.
hoping towards the end we shall be able to at least unpack some of the learnings that you have. But one thing, from following you online, I've seen you create a lot of content, a lot of educational content, which is superb. And I think for most real estate agents out there, something they struggle with is content creation, just being able to be comfortable on camera, on video, and creating content. But for you, how was your journey starting, and how are you finding content creation?
This would come as a surprise to you. I am an introvert. So getting behind a camera and talking, that's something that I'd say like battled with for a very long time. But I'm one person who is a bit outspoken. Like I love to talk and share my ideas. And what I realized, just trying to get a niche for myself. We are so many, and I believe the cake is big for all of us. But what I've seen is most people in the property industry, what we do is we just sell, 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 sell. So if you go to most of these pages, what you have is someone posting a listing, someone posting a house, come buy, come buy. But at the end of the day, we need to have that connection with the buyer. So they need to feel that you're feeling their pain, so to say. So if someone doesn't have information, where can I get that information? And that is, I think, what was lacking and is still lacking in the market. There's not much of information that is given to buyers. And so for myself, I found it that if I'm able to provide that, I'm providing a niche, and you'll see most of on my pages, I read with more of information, and the selling is at the back of it.
I agree that I've gone through your videos, and even you don't post a lot of properties, you post a lot of educational content,
Yes.
even though I know you have a lot of properties to sell. And I love what you said around you are an introvert, but even though you are an introvert, you are still able to make content.
Yes.
Because most people think you have to be outspoken, you have to be outgoing for you to create content. But for you, I see you can just stay in your car, be able to shoot quick content and send it out there. But give us your initial experience. How was it turning the camera to yourself for the first time and saying, I'm going to shoot this, I'm going to record this and send? Did you shoot the first one, post it? Did you shoot several, keep them? How did you just start, and how was putting the first one out there like for you?
So I had done a few projects for my employer, where projects that ended up on TV as well. So the first one was a bit, how would I say, the camera people, we had to take a lot of takes, so to say, because the aspect of the shyness and the being a critic to yourself. You do a video, you look at it, you say, no, I should have said this, I should have said that. But I think with time, that experience comes. But now also putting content for myself, because that one now it was like short clips where we are combined, so you don't have much of information, and the focus might not necessarily be you. But now the videos that I do for myself, of course, I did like several. They stayed in my phone, never uploaded, never posted anywhere. But I think just one day I interacted with a client, and they did not know any information about KMRC, the 9.5% affordable housing. And in my mind, I'm like, this is information I think everybody is having. And apparently, not everybody has gotten that information. And KMRC has been there for around, I think, 3 years now, 3, 4 years, so to say. So I wondered, how is it that people are not getting this information? And now that is when I I think the first video I did, and it got a lot of traction, was about KMRC, because I just told people, go into any bank, ask about this affordable mortgage, you get at least 10.5M and below at 9.5%. And you see if you can qualify and get yourself a unit. And from there, I think I just kept
You
on
got
going.
into the groove
Yes,
and kept going.
I kept going.
I've seen you are posting across several platforms. I've seen you. You are doing really good on TikTok and on Instagram. Are there any platforms that have worked better for you than others?
I'd say so far. I was posting also on Facebook, but I think Facebook is not my niche, so to say, or I was not even engaging as much. But I find TikTok and Instagram, if you have really good content and content that is informative, that people are able to relate with, it just boosts itself. So, for example, there's a video I did recently, and I was just analyzing a report that Knight Frank did. And to my surprise, I'm no longer on Twitter. It's a bit too much for me. So I woke up one morning and I found messages from my friends and some clients telling me you're on Twitter trending. Even my brother was telling me, I can see you're on Twitter trending. And it's just someone who picked that content from Instagram and shared it to Twitter. So I believe if you're sharing information that is making sense to people, it kind of just pushes itself. But for me, Instagram and TikTok. Instagram, it has its niche. TikTok is a bit fast moving. People will engage. Some people will just question everything that you do. But I find Instagram to have a bit of, so to say,
It's
mature, super.
It's a bit sober.
Yeah, it's a bit sober as compared to. But TikTok now gives you the numbers, so to say. Yeah.
Something you've said that is interesting, that you found yourself trending even in a platform that you are in.
Yes.
Because sometimes we always think maybe people will reach out to us through the platforms that we are in. But now I'm learning from you that we could even be getting leads and customers even from platforms that we are not even in.
So, for example, like now that's whatever I shared and it went on Twitter, and the person who shared was gracious enough because people asked, where can we get this kind of content? Because I think it's what people need. The person was gracious enough to tag my page and everything. So, from now, Twitter, people came to my Instagram, and I have a few clients who are telling me, this is my budget, this is what I want to do, look for me a property. So, source for me a property. Yeah.
Which brings me to, you've said now you have clients who are reaching out and then telling you, this is my budget, this is the kind of thing I'm looking for. If someone, let's say, listens to this podcast and then they are thinking, I would want to work with Eunice. If they approach you, how do the first conversations go?
For me, anybody who comes to me, the first thing, there are some basics that we need to sort of get on paper. So we need to identify what budget you're working with and why are you buying this property? Is it an investment property? Is it something that you're buying for yourself, like a home? And also, what locations are we looking at? Those, I think, are the three major basics that every real estate agent should ask. And also, at the end of the day, now we get to other nitty-gritties. There are some things that you're not willing to compromise on. Maybe you want somewhere that is near or close to amenities. You want somewhere that you can easily access even if you don't have a car. You want somewhere in terms of schools. What kind of schools are you looking at? So there are clients who are very specific. I want a place where there are international schools around. There are other people who, the kind of schools really don't matter because they don't have small kids. So those are some of the conversations that we engage because I need to understand why you're buying this property for me to be able to give you the best service. Because if I don't understand why you're buying the property, I'll source for a property above your budget. I'll source for a property. Maybe you want a townhouse, I'm getting you an apartment. It doesn't make sense. So we need at least to have an understanding. So the first engagement I usually have, it's just to have a better understanding of the client. And every property consultant needs to understand, like, have an ear of listening to the needs. There are some basics that the client will mention. This I can't do away without. So you need to listen carefully for that.
Great. At least what I'm loving about your process is most people try to make the clients buy what they have. Like,
Mhm.
I have this property, irrespective of what you need,
Yes.
you buy this
You
one.
have to buy this one.
This one is the one that is good for you. And that's what most real estate agents do. But thinking of that one, if I'm a buyer and I'm reaching out to a real estate agent, what are some of the things I should look out for so that I know I'm selecting like the right agent? Like, I'm a buyer looking to find an agent and I need to make sure I'm getting the right one. What are some of the things I should either look for or avoid?
In most instances, you'll find these agents, either it's referral or just someone searched online. So if it's referral already, you know there's that trust and confidence, because that is what I think you need most. You need someone who is honest and trust, someone you can trust, so to say, someone who will walk with you through this journey. It's not an easy one, so to say, but at the end of the day, you need someone who is, what you're saying is true. You don't want someone who is just pinpointing you to the properties that they have. You need someone who listens to you, and even if they don't have that particular property, now goes and sources for it for you, because we are looking for a good customer experience at the end of the day.
That's great to hear. And before we go to that, you had spoken around when someone comes to you, you have to understand the budget and
Yes.
what they are looking for. If we just drill down on the budget, what are some of the costs in your experience you've realized either people are not aware that they need to budget for, or what are some of the things you've realized people are not taking into account? Like, when I say I want a 10 million house, and I'm now looking for a house that costs exactly 10 million. What other costs should I be factoring in?
It's a very common mistake for most buyers, especially I think the first time buyers. So you have in mind that if a property is 10M, I need 10M and that's it. But that's not usually the case. So there are other closing costs which are not mentioned, and you might find them maybe once you have an offer letter. That's when you get to realize, oh, I have additional cost apart from the 10M. I'm going over and above maybe 700,000 to 1M. So other costs will include stamp duty. If you are in an urban area, especially within Nairobi, you'll be charged 4% of the value of the property. So if you're buying a house worth 10M, consider you have another 4% of the 10M that you're expected to pay. Mostly it's usually towards the end of the transaction for the transfer to happen. If you're in rural areas or outskirts of, let's say like now Nairobi, you're going to be charged 2% the value of the property. This mostly will happen either in rand. When you're purchasing a rand, you're expected to pay at least 2% of the value of the property. Consider what we call the legal fees. So I've experienced some developers will include the legal fee. So you pay for their lawyer and you pay for your lawyer, which is advisable. At least have yourself a legal person to represent you, because you don't want to make a mistake that will come bite you later, and because you could have chipped in a few coins for someone just to go through your documents. So consider that for lawyers, it's usually 1% of the the value of whatever you're buying. For your lawyer, you can try and negotiate, because if the vendor has their lawyer, you'll find your lawyer is not doing much of the work. So try and negotiate that. In some properties or some developments, they'll expect you to pay service charge upfront, like for a certain duration. Consider that as well. Ask questions around power and water meter installations. Some developments will not include that in the other costs, in the closing costs, they'll give it out, but some developments will include that. So have that in mind, that those are some of the costs. So we are talking about stamp duty, we are talking about legal fees, we are talking about power and water meters, so the utilities aspect and service charge.
Thanks, Eunice. But one thing you haven't mentioned is probably an agent. You haven't mentioned agent commissions. Do we need to factor that in? And I know most people try to work without an agent just to avoid paying the agent's commission. But I've seen all that you're saying, it's not things that someone would be out of their head be able to think through. What do you think around people being able to work without real estate agents, and what would you advise them to do?
I think everybody is good at whatever they do. You can't be a jack of all trades. So you don't go to the doctor and tell them how they're supposed to treat you, so to say. So I think working with an agent makes it easier for you, especially in terms of sourcing. You don't have the time to keep on going around different developments. And now the information that you're giving out, it's not readily available to everybody. So you might miss out on a particular aspect that might cost you. The amount that you're paying vis-a-vis the amount you might lose, you need to do your pros and cons, so to say. So I think I'd advise working with someone who is a bit professional, not a bit, someone who is professional, so that they can be able to guide you. And also working with an agent comes with an edge. This person, it's a person who has interacted with different developments. So there are some nitty gritties someone might be able to identify, even in terms of construction. Maybe when you're doing an inspection, they can see something and they're able to, maybe a structural issue, they'll be able to ask questions that you might not be able to ask.
Good, because I see people trying to do everything by themselves to just be able to save a shilling here and
Yes.
there. Like someone is trying to buy a piece of land, instead of just going getting a surveyor, then you find you were told this piece of land is 30 acres. You just used your eye to assume it's 30 acres, or because the title said so. And then afterwards, you're finding the acreage is 5 acres less, just because you didn't want to spend a few shillings and
Yes.
get the right professionals
Yes.
on board. So I think that should be that works fine, and people understand the importance of just getting the right professionals in place. If we look at, if we go beyond just making sure that the budget is fine, they are aware of the other costs that they need to be sure of, what other considerations do you find most people not considering? At least we've got the budget, people are aware of, they know the right professionals that they need. What other consideration for property buyers, particularly the first time property buyers who face the most challenges or lack the most information? What other advice would you have for first time home buyers?
Uh, First time, apart now from the financial aspect of it, there are other things that you need to consider. So the location, I think that's very keen. Where are you buying this property? And location, we are looking in terms of accessibility. Is it easily accessible? Are there roads or are there no roads? Uh, and aspects of infrastructure around, in terms of schools, in terms of malls, hospitals, can you easily access those amenities? Other considerations would be, if I'm buying, let's say like now, a piece of land in memory, you need to understand the legal or the zoning issues that happen in that particular place. In memory, you can't buy and build 3 stories and above. So if I'm buying to build an apartment, that means already that land is not for me. So you also need to understand such issues. And buying also land and you want to construct, is it an area, are you buying an agricultural land, or are you buying land that you can change into construction for construction purposes? Also consider aspects of security within the area. If you're buying for investment as a first time buyer, just do your due diligence within the area, the rental uptake for that area. You might buy a property somewhere people don't rent out. Majority of the people around that area are homeowners, so to say. So you need to understand the rental uptake of that particular area that you're buying. And also, I'd say when you're buying, and go check the house itself. If you're buying a ready house, do an inspection, a thorough inspection. You don't want to buy something 2 years down the line, it's like you're redoing the entire house. You have a whole lot of structural issues, plumbing issues, electrical issues. If you can have someone who is a bit qualified, a contractor or an engineer, just to have a thorough inspection of the house, that would be great.
That brings me to, I know there have been a lot of conversation around whether you need to buy off plans,
Yes.
something you're not seeing. but I know the advantage of plan. You could be able to buy cheap. I know the
Yes.
advantages and disadvantages of either. But what's your opinion around either buying off plan or buying something that is ready?
Buying off plan is always, for me, I find it's a win. But now it comes with its disadvantages. Because if you're dealing with a developer that is not trusted, you might lose your money. So it's more of like a risk game, but the returns will be a bit higher because when you're buying off plan, it's cheaper. If you're buying for your own use and not for investment, you can be able to custom make that house as compared to buying a ready house, then coming and having to redo everything. But now when you're buying off plan, there are some things that I think they're basic that you need to consider. Have you researched this developer? How many projects have they done? What is their track record? Uh, when they say they'll deliver by the end of this year, do they deliver by the end of this year, or by the end of this year now they start stories and tell you, "Oh, by June"? So just go through, and if possible, do site visits to those particular projects that they have completed, because also you're able to see the workmanship, so to say, the quality of the items that they're fitting. Because when you're buying off plan, you just either you're buying through the show house or just floor plans that you've been given. But if a developer has various projects, you're able to see if it styles the kind of workmanship that is happening in that particular house. And also, this is a basic, and everybody should consider. Don't try saving coins on this. Get yourself a lawyer, someone who will do the searches. If it's for land, go to the Ministry of Lands, do the search for that particular title. uh, and if you're buying maybe a property, agree on the payment plans and let it be on record. So if I'm paying, in most developments, it will be 10%. Some few will ask for 20% deposit. Then the payment plan comes either in terms of installments. Some may be attached to the milestones of the project. So if you do up to a certain level, I top up. If you do up to a certain level, I top up. Ensure that all that is well articulated in the sales agreement, or the sales agreement. And also, like, if I fail to meet to pay an installment by that particular time, what are my interest rates and what happens? And also, in some instances, also have the lawyer ask questions like, if the developer fails to honor their part, what happens? Do I get a refund, or how exactly do we go about it? Also consider the location again. When you're buying off plan, this is just trust. I'd say like blind trust.
Mhm.
Consider, like, in 5 years, would I be able to resell this property? And is it at a loss or at a profit? We all want to gain some money. So you want, if I bought a unit at 5M, in 5 years, can I be able to sell it at either 8M or
I
10?
wanted to say 7.
At 8M. So
Mhm.
you need also to consider such things when you're buying off plan.
I think you've mentioned something that I like that most people ignore. But I think being able, when you're buying off land, to just be able to either get a milestone payment,
Yes.
so that, because if you are paying monthly, you'll continue paying even though the development is
Is
not,
not moving.
it's not moving.
Yes.
But and if you stop paying and then you try getting a request from the developer, you'll be the one in error because you stopped making your
The
payments.
payments.
So getting that a milestone based payment, I think you mentioned, I really love that aspect. And also the aspect that you've said around being able to get penalties being put on either you or on the developer, so that
Yes.
it goes both ways. Like that's something that I found really helps. But as we are talking about these off-plan purchases, I would want you to just tell us your experience around what you've seen working for the Sectional Properties Act, because I think that's one thing that is coming to aid in and protect people who are buying properties. And because we've seen most developers walking away and not passing off ownership of the properties to the owners.
So for that, and this again comes back to the agreement. before you sign that piece of paper, because it's a binding contract, ensure that it captures everything. So you'd find for most properties, especially apartments, you're given either, if it's a continuous development, you'll get a sub-lease, because at the end of the day, they'll need to now transfer it to sectional property. But ensure that there's that agreement. The agreement captures the form of documentation you're going to get and at what particular point. So in most instances, you'll find once the development is done, that is when they go for registration. And now the registration of the property, and you get the document either within 30 to 60 days. Ensure that is well captured, because now if the developer fails to honor, you have a binding contract that you can be able to hold them accountable to. For people who are buying through mortgage, for them they're a bit safe, so to say, and you'll find, especially the diaspora market, people have money, but they don't want to buy cash because of that aspect of I'm buying and off plan and I might not get the property. So for them, they'll use mostly the bank.
Mortgage.
Yes, the mortgage. Because mortgage, there's no way the bank will give you the money without having the proper documentation.
So, sounds great. But now let's say I am now ready to buy a property.
Yes.
How will the process look like? Now I'm ready, I've researched with you, and I'm now ready to buy a property we've both identified
Yes.
together. How will the process look like from start like to the end?
So one, we've already identified the property that we want to buy. Secondary would be now also we look at our finances. Are we going cash? Are we buying cash or are we buying mortgage? So if for mortgage, you need at least to start the process. And also allow me to come back. We've identified the property. We do some due diligence of this property. If it's a whatever property, if it's land or apartment or a townhouse, it will have a title or something registered to it in the Ministry of Lands. You need to do a search for that. The lawyer can assist you do that. And also, it will also show if there are any, they call it encumbrances. So if the house had a loan to it, you'll be able to see that. And you can either put a post to that transaction or not. Once we've identified that our finances are right, now we engage the developer or whoever is selling. Sometimes it might be an individual, whoever is selling the house or the land to us, and we get the paperwork done. So this might start with an offer letter and then transition into the sales agreement. And this is where I'm saying the lawyer has to at least have a look at this agreement, because this will be your binding contract for the rest of this transaction. So ensure that anything that you want included is included. If it is in terms of if the developer does not comply, what will happen? If they deliver something substandard, because they are developers who are a bit funny. They'll give you a floor plan and make a very beautiful show house, but whatever you're given at the end of the day is something totally different. Have it in paper that it will be a replica of whatever you are able to see. So have all that written and uh, also include the payment plan. Let it be well stipulated. If it's a ready house within 90 days, most developments will be within 90 days. If it's now under construction, have that payment plan, the milestone payment plan included as well. Then after that, now we continue with our process, the payment, and towards the end, we'll have the transfer. So the registration, if the property was coming from you to me, so we need to do that transfer. If it's from the developer, we need to do that transfer. So I have to have now the documents, and at that point is when we pay the stamp duty for the registration to happen. Stamp duty, most people will think you're just paying to the developer. No, you even pay it directly to KRA because it's the government's money, so to say. Then at the end of this transaction, we need to do an inspection of the house. Whether it's a ready house, do an inspection, a thorough inspection. If it's something that is off plan, again, once the house is done, kindly do a thorough inspection. And there's something maybe I forgot to say. Ensure when you're doing this transaction, there's something called defect liability period. Once I buy a property and I identify maybe there's a leakage somewhere, am I expected to handle this? So have like a proper timeline and time frame. Most developments will give you between 6 to 12 months. So if you identify anything that is not okay within those months, the developer or whoever bought the property should be able to rectify. But again, make sure it's in writing, because verbally,
it may not happen.
it will not happen. It will not happen.
If it's not written,
If it's not written, at that point when someone is buying and there's all that excitement, I know all these false,
you skip a few.
yeah, and also the false promises. Yeah, if you find something is wrong, we will rectify it. But if it's not written, and now once the issue has come up and you have nothing to fall back, you see, now you as a buyer, you're the one who is going at a loss at the end of the day.
I see. I'm sure there are some properties that you've already done, like a background review. You already know these properties would be working.
Yes.
Are there some that you could be able to recommend?
I'd recommend Lifestyle Heights, especially for apartment. It has a very good, it's a gated community, so to say. The developer is trusted. He's been in the game for around 12 years, 12, 13 years. So it's someone who is able to deliver, and the off-plan projects are moving fast because of that ability of promising and delivering. Then also, I think along this the committee road, people are coming now to these sites. We are seeing people moving away from Kilimani and all that side. So we have some good projects coming along this area as well.
Now that you haven't said the other good ones that you have, if someone wants to reach out, how could they get in touch?
For me, I think my number is all over there. So 0711 168 716. If you need information, a lot of educational content, you can reach me on my pages, Eunice Realtor KE, both on Instagram and on TikTok.
And we're also going to link the same thing in the description, so that if you want to reach her out, the same links on her social media, telephone contact will be on the description of this video, so that you can be able to pick the contacts from there. Now, coming back, Eunice, what are some of the general advice you can give out there, like some things you wish people would know about property investment?
One, and I think this, I've said it and I'll say it and I'll say it again. Just have someone who has legal background to help you in this process. Because we've seen people in messes that if you had only someone who had legal background, you could not find yourself in such messes. So for example, when you're buying a property, there's some properties I think around Mombasa Road. The HFC Bank took them back. Some, I think last year or a couple or 1 year ago. Only because they were not given a document called a partial discharge. And if someone had bought through a lawyer, you could know that that was one of the documents that you needed. So a partial discharge is when you as the developer, you've taken a loan with the mother title of that particular land, and the bank sort of attaches, it's like a security to the loan that they've given you. So whenever you buy a property, whenever you buy a unit and you clear with the developer, they're expected to give you a partial discharge. So this means when, in case the developer, so let's say, let me give you a scenario. The developer has constructed 300 houses. He sold 200 houses. Out of these 200, he's given partial discharge for all the 200 houses. In case he defaults or he doesn't pay the loan as expected, the bank can come and reclaim their 100 houses because they are still security. But now in an instance where the 200 houses are sold, only 50 people had lawyers and asked for the partial discharge and got it. 150 didn't have the lawyers and didn't even care to know about the partial discharge. And the developer has defaulted the loan. So it means the bank will come back for the rest. So you as a buyer, you see you're the one who's going at a loss. And there's something, it's sad to say, but not all developers will be honest. Some are in it for themselves, so they want to make quick money and just go. So you are left there. It was your whole investment. For example, if someone is starting up, this is their family home, they have invested, probably even they took a loan to it, and now you're coming to tell me you're taking my house. You see how that kind of, only because you could have paid maybe a lawyer a few shillings and it could have saved you a whole lot of cases.
Thanks. That really helps. I think I've been able to learn that one from you.
Yes.
And also, I've been able to learn a lot, defense liability period,
Yes.
how important that is. So, thank you so much for coming to the podcast.
You're welcome.
Any last words?
Last words would be, if you're buying off plan, especially because I think most people in this market now, we are looking into off plan properties, because one, you're able to save on your money, and also the payment plan is a bit flexible. Kindly do your due diligence. Even when you're buying land, ensure that you do your due diligence. You don't want to buy a property, then 5 years later there's no property inside. You don't want to buy land. 5 years later, you have land and court cases every now and then. Do your due diligence and make sure that also you as a buyer, you have your basic knowledge information. And I think that's what I'm advocating for. You don't have to rely on people to give you information. You as a buyer, you need to have your own information as well. So if the lawyer says this, I'm able also to ask a question about it. If a developer tells me ABC, I'm also able to ask a question about it. Like, have your own basic information.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
We've
for having me.
learned a ton,
Yes.
and I hope you can find time to be with us some other time.
Thank you. I'll definitely be back.
That's it. I hope you've enjoyed today's conversation with Eunice. As I've mentioned, you can reach out to her on social media. I'll link up her profiles in the description. And until next time, see you.